My name is Deanna Collins, and 5 years ago I buried the only man I had ever loved. At least that's what I thought I did. For half a decade I have lived alone in apartment 4B of the Maple Ridge Senior Residences, a quiet brick building on the edge of a quiet town where nothing ever happens. The days are gentle and predictable. Coffee at 7, a slow walk around the block at 9, Tuesdays at the cemetery, Thursdays at the library, Sundays a 10-minute phone call with my daughter Rachel. I had made peace with the silence. I thought the worst thing that could still happen to me was loneliness. Then came Tuesday, October 14th, and Fred the janitor asked a question that tore the last 5 years of my life wide open. I was fumbling with my mailbox key. My arthritis had been particularly cruel that morning when I heard the familiar shuffle of Fred's work boots behind me. Fred is 73, soft-spoken, with kind gray eyes and hands that look like old tree bark from decades of fixing things for people who barely notice him. We have exchanged the same 3 sentences every day for 15 years. Good morning, Mrs. Collins. Good morning, Fred. Need anything fixed? Not today, thank you. That morning he didn't follow the script. He cleared his throat twice, the way men do when they're about to say something they've rehearsed in their heads 100 times and still aren't sure about. Mrs. Collins, he began, tipping the brim of his faded Cubs cap. Can I ask you something? Personnel? I turned, surprised. Fred had never asked me anything personal, not once. Of course, Fred, what is it? He glanced left, then right, as if the empty lobby might be listening. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. That man who comes to see you every Tuesday. Who is he? The keys slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the tile floor. The sound echoed too loudly in the sudden stillness. I'm sorry, I said, certain I had misheard. What man? Fred bent slowly, picked up my keys, and placed them back in my trembling hand. His eyes never left mine. Tall fellow, maybe 50, 55. Dark hair going a little gray at the temples. Always wears the same navy coat. Comes around 2 o'clock, uses a key, stays about an hour. I've seen him 6-7 months now. Always Tuesdays. A coldness started in my stomach and spread outward like spilled ink. Fred, I said carefully, there must be some mistake. No one visits me. Not on Tuesdays. Not on any day. He didn't argue. He simply looked sad, the way people look when they're forced to be the bearer of something unpleasant. I figured you'd say that, he replied. But it's definitely 4B. I watched him put the key in your lock myself. More than once. He hesitated, then added, I thought maybe he was family. A nephew or something. He don't look like no burglar. Always real quiet, respectful, but I had to ask. I don't remember thanking him. I don't remember the elevator ride. I only remember standing inside my apartment with the door locked behind me, staring at the familiar furniture as though I had never seen it before. Everything was exactly as I had left it that morning. My coffee cup in the sink, the newspaper open to the obituaries, my morbid little habit since Jared died, the throw pillow on the armchair tilted slightly to the left, the way I always leave it because that's how Jared used to fix it when he read the paper. But now every detail felt suspect. Had the magazine on the coffee table been moved 2 inches to the right? Was the bathroom door usually left ajar? Had I closed the kitchen blinds all the way? Or had someone opened them a finger's width to let in more light? I spent the next 2 hours walking through my own home like a stranger, touching things, searching for proof that another human being had stood where I was standing. I found nothing. Not a fingerprint, not a scuff mark, not a single hair. If someone was coming into my apartment every Tuesday, they were a ghost. That afternoon, I sat by the living room window with a cup of tea gone cold in my hands, watching the street below. 2 o'clock came and went. No tall man in a navy coat. No one at all. By evening, I had almost convinced myself that Fred, sweet, reliable Fred, was finally losing his marbles. Old age comes for all of us, I told myself. Better to let it go. But I couldn't let it go. That night, I lay awake listening to every creak of the building. Every muffled television from the neighbors, every distant siren. At 3:17 a.m., I got out of bed, opened my laptop, and ordered a security camera from a big online retailer. 2-day shipping, motion-activated, high definition. I told myself it was silly. I told myself I was becoming one of those paranoid old women who think the mailman is spying on them. But I also remembered Fred's eyes, steady, worried, absolutely certain. The cameras arrived on Thursday. I had the young technician install 3, one in the living room facing the front door, One in the kitchen, one in the hallway. He showed me how to use the app on my phone, how to scroll through footage, how the system would send an alert if motion was detected. "You expecting trouble, Mrs. Collins?" he asked lightly as he packed up his tools. "No," I lied. "Just peace of mind." Friday, Saturday, Sunday passed in a haze of nervous waiting. I jumped every time the floorboards settled. I checked the locks 5 times before bed. I even dragged a chair in front of the door one night, like a child afraid of monsters. Monday night, I barely slept. Tuesday morning, I followed my normal routine on purpose, coffee, newspaper, watered the herbs on the balcony. At 11:47, I put on my coat, took my purse, and left the apartment exactly the way I always do on Tuesdays, loudly locking the door, calling a cheerful, "See you later, Fred," as I passed him in the lobby. But I didn't go to the cemetery. Instead, I walked 3 blocks, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and sat on a park bench where I could see the entrance to my building. I waited. My heart felt like a trapped bird beating against my ribs. At 1:58 p.m. I saw him. He came from the direction of the bus stop, just as Fred had described. Tall, navy coat, dark hair with silver at the temples. He walked with purpose but not hurry, hands in his pockets, head slightly down against the October wind. I watched him enter the building. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I waited 15 minutes, long enough for the elevator, long enough for him to be inside 4B. Then I hurried back, taking the stairs 2 at a time despite my aching knees. I stopped outside my own door, ear pressed to the wood. Nothing, no sound at all. I slipped my key in as quietly as I could and eased the door open just a crack. Empty. The living room looked untouched. I stepped inside, closed the door softly behind me, and stood frozen, listening. Still nothing. Then I heard it. The faint clink of a cup against a saucer. Coming from the kitchen. Someone was in my kitchen. I should have screamed. I should have called 911. I should have grabbed the heavy brass candlestick Jared's mother gave us in 1987 and charged in swinging. Instead, I crept forward on trembling legs until I could see through the gap between the hinges of the kitchen door. He had his back to me, navy coat folded neatly over the back of a chair. He was rinsing something in the sink, my blue coffee mug, I realized. He dried it with the yellow dish towel, placed it exactly where I always keep it, then opened the refrigerator and took out the milk. He moved like he belonged here. He knew where the spoons were kept. He knew I took 1 sugar and a splash of milk. He even hummed, softly under his breath, the opening bars of "Fly Me to the Moon," the same song Jared used to hum while making coffee. I must have made a sound because he turned. I saw his face for the first time, and something inside me cracked open like an egg. He was older than Jared had been when he died, but the resemblance was unmistakable. The same strong jaw, the same gentle eyes, the same cowlick that refused to lie flat no matter how many times you combed it. But it wasn't Jared. It was someone I had never seen before in my life. And yet I knew him. I knew the shape of his shoulders. I knew the careful way he held the mug so it wouldn't slip from his large, gentle hands. I knew the small scar on his left eyebrow. I knew him the way you know a dream you can't quite remember when you wake up. He looked at me and his face went white. "Mama?" he whispered. The mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on my kitchen tile. And that was the exact moment I fell to my knees. Because somewhere in the deepest part of me, somewhere, Jared had buried under 30 years of careful lies. I remembered my son. I don't know how long. I stayed on the kitchen floor among the shards of the broken mug. Time lost its edges. The only sound was the soft drip-drip of coffee and milk pooling around my knees and the ragged pull of my own breathing. Mama, he had called me Mama, dropped to his knees too, not caring that the liquid soaked through his jeans. His hands hovered in the air, wanting to touch me but afraid. "Mama, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I thought you were at the cemetery. I always wait until you're gone. I'm so sorry." His voice cracked on every word. It was deeper than I expected, slow, deliberate, the way some people speak when they have to think hard about each syllable before letting it leave their mouth. There was something heartbreakingly gentle in the way he pronounced my name. Mama, like it was a prayer he had practiced for years. I looked up at him. Really looked. He was 51, maybe 52, tall the way Jared had been tall, but broader in the shoulders, softer around the middle. His hair was thick and dark, only just beginning to silver. The same stubborn cowlick standing up at the front. His eyes were mine, pale, green with flecks of gold, and the shape of his mouth when he smiled, uncertain and hopeful, was the mouth I saw in photographs of myself at 25. But I had no photographs of him, not one, because according to every memory I owned, this man had never existed. I don't understand, I heard myself say. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else, thin and far away. Who are you? His face crumpled. The hope drained out of it so completely that I felt it like a physical blow. You really don't remember me, he whispered. Daddy said you wouldn't. He said the accident took me away from your head. But I thought, maybe if I kept coming, maybe one day. He stopped, pressed his lips together the way children do, when they're trying not to cry in front of adults. I reached out without thinking and touched his cheek. My hand looked small and fragile against his skin. He leaned into the touch the way a cat leans into a stroke it has missed for years. I come every Tuesday, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I take the 72 bus, then the 19. It's 2 hours each way. I bring you things, tea, milk that isn't expired. I water your herbs. I dust the photo of you and Daddy on the mantle because you always forget the top corners. I just wanted to take care of you the way you used to take care of me. I pulled my hand back as if I'd been burned. Every Tuesday, for months, maybe longer, and I had never known. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter to keep from falling sideways. How long? I managed. He thought about it the way he seemed to think about everything, carefully, turning the question over like a puzzle piece. Since Daddy went to heaven, 5 years and 4 months. Before that, he used to drive me sometimes, when you were sleeping. He said seeing me made you cry, so we had to be quiet. Like a secret. A secret. 30 years of my life built on a secret so complete that even I had believed it. I don't remember standing up. I only remember finding myself in the living room, the phone in my hand, dialing Rachel before I could talk myself out of it. Mom? Her voice was impatient. I could hear her children arguing in the background. I'm in the middle of... There's someone in my apartment, I cut in. My voice shook so violently I barely recognized it. A man. He has a key. He says he's my son. Silence. Then the background noise disappeared. She must have stepped into another room. Mom, slow down. What are you talking about? I don't know, I said, and the tears started then, hot and sudden. I don't know who he is, Rachel, but he knows where I keep the chamomile tea. He knows I like 1 sugar and just a drop of milk. He knows the song Daddy used to hum, and he called me Mama. Another silence, longer this time. Stay where you are, she said finally, all impatience gone. Lock the door. I'm coming right now. She hung up. I turned back to the kitchen doorway. He was still on his knees, carefully picking up pieces of the broken mug, placing them in his large palm like a child collecting seashells. What's your name? I asked. He looked up, surprised, as if no one had asked him that in a very long time. Marcus, he said softly. Marcus Jared Collins. After Daddy. Marcus. The name hit me like a fist to the chest. I had named him that. I remembered now, not the full memory, just a flash. Jared and me in the hospital room, exhausted and giddy, arguing over names. I had wanted something strong, something kind. Marcus. He will be marked by God. Jared had laughed and kissed my forehead and said yes, perfect. And then nothing. A wall, a blank space where the rest of my son's life should have been. Marcus finished gathering the shards, stood up slowly, and deposited them gently in the trash. Then he washed his hands at the sink, dried them on the yellow towel, folded the towel exactly the way I fold it, corner to corner, and turned to face me. I can go, he said. If you want me to go, I'll go. I never wanted to make you scared. He reached into his coat, pocket, the coat still hanging, neatly on the chair, and pulled out a key, my spare key, the one I kept in the fake rock by the door that no one was ever supposed to find. He placed it on the counter between us like an offering. I won't come back if it hurts you, he said. Daddy said love sometimes means staying away. The tears came harder then. I couldn't stop them. No, I choked out, please, don't go, just give me a minute. I need to see something. I stumbled to the coffee table where my phone was charging and opened the security app with shaking fingers. Marcus watched me, confused but patient. I scrolled back to last Tuesday, then the Tuesday before that, and the one before that. There he was, every week, same time, same navy coat, letting himself in with gentle familiarity. moving through my apartment like a caretaker, not an intruder. In one clip, he watered my basil plant and spoke to it softly. "You're doing good, little guy. Mama will be proud." In another, he stood in front of the wedding photo on the mantel, Jared and me, young and laughing, and touched the glass with one finger, tracing the outline of my face. In a third, he sat on my couch with a grocery bag in his lap, carefully writing something on a piece of my stationery. When he stood up to leave, the camera caught the note he placed on the counter. "Hope the new tea helps you sleep better. Love, M." Every Tuesday for 5 years he had been loving me in secret, and I had never known he was alive. I don't know when Rachel arrived. I only know that suddenly she was in the doorway, coat half on, hair wild, eyes wide with fear. She took one look at Marcus, at the man who shared her eyes, her mouth, her height, and stopped dead. "Mom?" Her voice was barely a breath. Marcus turned. When he saw her, his whole face lit up the way the sun lights up a room when someone finally opens the curtains. "Rachel," he said, and it wasn't a question. He knew her the way he knew me. "You came. You're even prettier than the pictures." Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. I watched my daughter stare at the brother she had never been allowed to have, and I saw the exact moment recognition slammed into her. She made a sound, half sob, half scream, and then she was across the room, throwing her arms around Marcus like she was drowning, and he was the only solid thing in the world. Marcus held her carefully, the way you hold something precious you're afraid you'll break. Over her shoulder, his eyes met mine, and they were full of tears. "It's okay," he said to both of us. "It's okay now. We're all together." Rachel pulled back just far enough to look at him, really look at him. "You're real," she whispered. "You're actually real." Marcus nodded. "I missed you every day," he said simply. "Daddy said you didn't know about me. He said it would be too hard for you. But I kept your pictures anyway, the ones from when you were little. You had pigtails and a gap in your teeth." Rachel started crying so hard she couldn't speak. I stood there, frozen between them, feeling the past and the present collide inside my chest like two freight trains. Marcus looked at me over Rachel's shoulder. "I brought photo albums," he said shyly. "They're in my bag at the bus station locker. I didn't want to scare you with too much at once. But if you want, I can go get them. We can look together." I found my voice somehow. "Yes," I said. "Yes, Marcus. Bring the albums. Bring everything. I want to remember. I need to remember." He smiled then, a smile, so bright it lit up every dark corner Jared had ever built inside me. "Okay, Mama," he said. "I'll be right back. Don't worry. I know the way." And just like that, my son walked out the door to catch the bus home. Only this time, I knew he was coming back, and this time I would be waiting. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of photographs, tears, and questions that had no gentle answers. Marcus returned that same evening with a worn green duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Inside were 3 thick photo albums, a small wooden box filled with birthday cards I had written him decades ago, and a stack of spiral notebooks, his journals, one for every year since he had learned to write in careful, rounded letters. Rachel stayed. She called Tom, told him to keep the kids overnight, and curled up on my couch with her knees to her chest like she was 16 again. Marcus sat cross-legged on the carpet. The albums spread around him like a child showing off treasures. I sat in Jared's old armchair, the one I had never been able to give away, and let the past pour over me in waves. The first photograph he showed us was dated June 12, 1975. A younger version of me, 25 years old, exhausted, radiant, lay in a hospital bed cradling a newborn wrapped in a pale blue blanket. My eyes were swollen from crying, but I was smiling so wide my cheeks must have hurt for days. Jared stood beside the bed, one proud hand on my shoulder, the other resting gently on the baby's head. On the back, in my own handwriting, Marcus Jared Collins, 8LBS30Z, our perfect boy. I touched the photograph with shaking fingers. The memory was still locked behind a wall, but the emotion leaked through the cracks, fierce, protective love so strong it took my breath away. Marcus turned the page slowly, reverently. There I was pushing a stroller in the park. There was Marcus at 2, laughing as he chased bubbles. At 4, wearing a too big firefighter hat on Halloween. At 6, asleep on my lap during Christmas morning, one hand curled around a toy train. Then the pictures grew farther apart. Marcus at 10, standing alone in front of a birthday cake with no other children. Marcus at 12, smiling uncertainly beside. Jared in front of a new house, the house we moved to after the accident. I was supposed to have had Marcus at 15, taller than me, arms wrapped around my waist from behind while I cooked something at the stove. My face in that photo looked thin, haunted. After that, the album stopped. The last photograph was dated September 2008. Marcus was 32 years old, standing outside a brick building with cheerful yellow awnings. Willowbrook Care Facility. He was holding a small suitcase. Jared stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, staring straight at the camera with an expression I now recognized as shame. On the back, in Jared's handwriting, "For his own good. Forgive me." Rachel made a sound like a wounded animal. Marcus closed the album gently. That was the day. "Daddy brought me to live at Willowbrook," he said matter-of-factly. "He said you were very sick and couldn't take care of me anymore. He said it would be better for everyone if I had people who understood how to help me. He looked at me, eyes steady and kind. But I never stopped missing you, Mama. Even when Daddy said it made you cry to see me, I still missed you every day." I couldn't speak. The grief and the rage were choking me. Rachel found her voice first. "How?" she whispered. "How did he do it? How did he make us forget an entire person?" Marcus opened one of the spiral notebooks and turned to a page. He had marked with a paperclip. "Daddy was very smart," he said, not with bitterness, but with the same tone he might use to say the sky is blue. "He told everyone you had a bad car accident after I was born, that you hit your head and forgot whole years. He told the doctors, the neighbors, even Grandma and Grandpa before they died. He moved us to a new town when I was little, so no one would ask questions. And when people did ask, he said Marcus passed away when he was a baby. He even had a funeral." He looked up at me, eyes shining with tears he refused to let fall. "I went to my own funeral, Mama. I was 6. Daddy said I had to be very quiet and pretend I was someone else. There was a tiny white coffin. You cried so hard I thought your heart would break right there in the church. I remembered that funeral. I remembered the suffocating grief. The way I had begged to see my baby one last time, and Jared had refused, saying it would be too much. I remembered the closed casket, the single white rose, the way I had collapsed at the graveside. I had buried an empty box." Rachel stood up suddenly and walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Marcus watched her with gentle concern. "I tried to tell you," he said softly. "When I got older, I wrote letters, lots of letters, but Daddy always found them first. He said you were too fragile, that the truth would make you sick again." He reached into the wooden box and pulled out a stack of envelopes tied with a faded blue ribbon. My handwriting on everyone. "To my sweet boy, happy 8th birthday. Mommy loves you so much. To Marcus, age 10, I am so proud of the big boy you're becoming. To my son, age 15, I miss you more than words can say." I had written those cards every year on his birthday and Christmas. Jared had told me he would deliver them to the cemetery, that it was part of my grief therapy. I had believed him. Marcus had kept every single one. Rachel turned from the window, tears streaming down her face. "I have a brother," she said, voice breaking. "I've had a brother my whole life, and I never knew. Dad stole him from me, from both of us." She crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt in front of Marcus, taking both his large hands in hers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't know you. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder to remember something was missing. I always felt like there was a hole in our family, but I thought it was just grief. I thought it was normal." Marcus squeezed her hands gently. "It's okay, Rachel. Daddy said you were little when it happened, that you wouldn't remember me anyway. But I remembered you. I kept your school pictures, the ones Daddy brought me. You had braces in 5th grade, and you played softball. You were really good." Rachel laughed through her tears, an ugly, broken sound that somehow still held joy. "I hated those braces," she said. "I thought they made you look brave," Marcus replied earnestly. That night we didn't sleep. We sat up until dawn looking at photographs, reading Marcus's journals, piecing together 30 lost years, one painful fragment at a time. He told us about Willowbrook, how it wasn't a bad place, how the staff were kind and the food was decent, how he had friends there and a job in the greenhouse. But he also told us how every Tuesday for the past 5 years he had taken 2 buses across the city just to make sure I had fresh milk and clean dishes and someone to talk to my plants when I wasn't home. He told us how Jared had visited every Sunday until the heart attack, always bringing new photographs of Rachel's children, always promising that one day things might be different. He told us about the day Jared died, how the staff had sat him down and explained that his father was gone, how Marcus had asked if that meant he could finally come home to his mother, how Mrs. Henderson had cried and said she didn't know, that no one had ever explained the full truth to her either. And he told us about the key. Daddy gave it to me the last time he visited, Marcus said, pulling the familiar spare key from his pocket again. He was very sick. He knew he didn't have long. He made me promise to keep taking care of you. He said, "Your mama needs you more than she knows, son. Even if she doesn't remember, she needs you." Rachel and I stared at the key lying in his palm. Jared's final act had not been cruelty. It had been confession. By the time the sun rose, pale and cold through my living room window, we had cried ourselves empty. The photo albums lay open, around us like the wreckage of a ship that had finally washed ashore. Rachel looked at me, eyes red and swollen. "What do we do now, Mom?" I looked at my children, my two miraculous, impossible children, sitting side by side on my carpet, shoulders touching, sharing the same stunned expression of people who had just discovered they were not alone in the world after all. "We bring him home," I said. Marcus's head snapped up. For the first time all night, he looked afraid. "Really?" he whispered. "For real? Not just a visit?" I reached out and cupped his face in both my hands. "For real, sweetheart. For good. This is your home. It always was." He closed his eyes and leaned into my touch the way he must have done when he was small. And the world still made sense. Rachel stood up, wiping her face with the sleeve of her sweater. "Then we start tomorrow," she said, voice fierce with determination. "I'll call lawyers, social workers, whoever we need. My brother is coming home, and no one is ever taking him away again." Marcus opened his eyes and looked from Rachel to me and back again. "I get to stay?" he asked, as if he needed to hear it one more time. "You get to stay," I said. And for the first time in 30 years, my son smiled at me with the full, unguarded joy of a child who had finally been told the truth. That he was loved, that he was wanted, that he had never, ever been forgotten. Not really. Outside my window, the city began to wake up. Somewhere a bus engine turned over. Somewhere a dog barked. Somewhere life went on, ordinary and oblivious. But inside apartment 4B, 3 people who had been broken apart by one man's shame were beginning, slowly and carefully, to put themselves back together. And for the first time in decades, I was not afraid of Tuesdays. The first official day of having my son home began at 5:47 a.m. with the sound of Marcus screaming in his sleep. I bolted out of bed so fast my hips screamed in protest, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape. By the time I reached the living room couch, his temporary bed until we could rearrange the rooms, he was sitting upright, eyes wide, hands clutching the blanket to his chest. "Mama?" His voice cracked, small and terrified. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." I sat beside him and pulled him against me the way I must have done when he was 5 and afraid of thunderstorms. He was too big for my lap now, but he folded himself into my arms anyway, trembling. "I dreamed Daddy took me back," he whispered against my shoulder. "He said I couldn't stay, that I was too much trouble, that you'd get sick again if I stayed." I felt the old rage rise, hot and familiar, but I swallowed it down. Marcus didn't need my anger right now. He needed the truth spoken gently, over and over, until it drowned out 30 years of lies. "Listen to me," I said, stroking his hair the way I used to when it was baby soft instead of thick and coarse. "Your father is gone. He can't take you anywhere, and even if he were here, I would fight him with everything I have. You are not too much trouble. You are my son. This is your home. Do you understand?" He nodded against my neck, breath hitching. "I'm sorry I woke you." "Don't you dare apologize for a nightmare, Marcus Jared Collins." "Not ever." He laughed then, a wet, surprised sound, and pulled back to look at me. "You said my whole name. You only did that when I was in big trouble when I was little. Well, you're in big trouble for thinking you could ever be too much for me," I said, and kissed his forehead. By 7 o'clock we were both in the kitchen, moving around each other with the careful choreography of people learning how to share space again. Marcus insisted on making coffee exactly the way he remembered I liked it. 1 sugar, splash of milk, in the blue mug with the chipped handle. He even hummed "Fly Me to the Moon" while the kettle boiled. Rachel arrived at 8:15 with Tom, 2 teenagers in tow, and a stack of paperwork thick enough to stun a horse. "Operation Bring Uncle Marcus Home is officially underway," she announced, dumping folders on my dining table. "I've got guardianship forms, medical power of attorney, disability support applications, housing modification grants, and the world's strongest coffee." Kevin and Emma, my grandchildren, stood awkwardly in the doorway, staring at the uncle they had met only once, briefly, 2 nights ago. Marcus noticed immediately. "Hi," he said, waving with the same shy enthusiasm he'd shown in every childhood photograph. "I'm Marcus. I like trains and basketball and helping with science projects. Emma, you got an A on ecosystems, right?" "That was really good." Emma's mouth fell open. "How did you know that?" "Mama told me," he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She tells me everything about you. And Kevin, you had 22 points last game. That 3-pointer at the buzzer was awesome." Kevin, 16 and convinced he was too cool for most emotions, actually blushed. "You watched my game?" "I watch all of them on the computer at Willowbrook," Marcus said. "The library lady lets me use YouTube." "You're really good." That was all it took. Within 5 minutes, Kevin was showing Marcus highlight clips on his phone, and Emma was dragging him to the table to look at her new science fair idea involving recycled plastic and hydroponics. Rachel caught my eye across the room and smiled so wide it looked painful. Paperwork took the rest of the morning. Mrs. Henderson from Willowbrook had already faxed over Marcus's complete file, medical history, psychological evaluations, daily schedules, medication lists, everything. Rachel's lawyer friend, Sarah, arrived at 10 with a notary stamp and a determination that scared even me. "Legally," Sarah explained. "Spreading documents like a poker dealer. You never stopped being Marcus's mother. Jared's actions were fraudulent concealment at best, abduction by deception at worst. No court in the country is going to fight a healthy, willing biological mother who wants her adult-child home, especially when the child is competent to express his own wishes." Marcus raised his hand like he was in school. "I have a wish," he said clearly. "I wish to live with my mama and my sister and my niece and nephew forever." Sarah grinned. "Consider it documented." There were still hurdles. Marcus received Social Security disability benefits that had to be redirected. Medicaid waiver services had to be transferred from institutional to community-based. We needed an occupational therapist to assess the apartment for safety, modifications, wider doorways for the days his coordination was bad. Grab bars in the bathroom, a higher toilet seat. The waiting list for home aides was 6 months long. But Rachel simply looked at the social worker and said, "My mother is 63 and recently discovered her son was stolen from her for 30 years. Do you really want to make her wait 6 months?" The woman moved us to the top of the list. By lunchtime, we had signed enough forms to wallpaper the apartment. Marcus watched everything with quiet wonder, as if he couldn't quite believe it was real. At one point, he tugged my sleeve. "Mama," he whispered, "is this what normal families do? Paper and talking and planning?" I kissed the top of his head. "This is what families do when they're fighting to stay together." The first real test came that afternoon. Mrs. Henderson called to say that Willowbrook's board of directors had concerns. They had received an anonymous letter, postmarked 2 days ago. No return address, claiming that I was emotionally unstable and possibly suffering from early dementia. The letter suggested that removing Marcus from a structured environment could be harmful. My blood ran cold. Jared had planned for every contingency, even beyond the grave. Rachel's face went white when I told her. "That's not possible," she said. "No one knows yet. We've only told family. But someone did know. Someone who had access to my medical history, my address, and a deep investment in keeping the secret buried. Tom, quiet, steady Tom, spoke up for the first time all day. "I think we all know who wrote it," he said. "The question is what we do about it." We did the only thing we could do. We invited Mrs. Henderson to come see for herself. She arrived the next morning, Friday, with a social worker and a psychologist in tow. I had spent the night cleaning until my hands bled, terrified they would find a single dust bunny and decide I was unfit. Marcus greeted them at the door wearing the new shirt Rachel had bought him, soft blue cotton, that made his eyes look even greener, and a smile so bright it could have powered the building. "Hi, Mrs. Henderson," he said, hugging her gently. "I made cookies. Chocolate chip, your favorite. And I have a room now. Want to see?" He led them on a tour like a proud 8-year-old showing off his fort. There was the corner of the living room we had cleared for his bed until the second bedroom was ready. There was the shelf I had already filled with model trains he had brought from Willowbrook. There was the schedule we had drawn together in bright markers. Breakfast at 7:30, medication at 8, library volunteer shift on Wednesdays, family dinner every Sunday. The psychologist asked gentle questions. Marcus answered with the unfiltered honesty that had always been his superpower. Do you feel safe here, Marcus? Yes, this is where my mama is. Do you understand that you can visit Willowbrook anytime you want? That this change doesn't have to be forever if you don't like it? Marcus looked genuinely puzzled. Why wouldn't I like it? My family is here. My trains are here. My mama makes pancakes on Sundays now. At Willowbrook, the pancakes are always Tuesday and they taste like cardboard. Mrs. Henderson hid a smile behind her hand. They stayed for 3 hours. They watched Marcus sort his medications into the weekly pill, organizer without prompting. They watched him help Emma with her science project and explain to Kevin why the 1980s Bulls were better than the current team. They watched him hug me goodbye when he left for his last scheduled day at Willowbrook's greenhouse, promising to bring me a basil plant he had grown himself. When they left, Mrs. Henderson pulled me aside in the hallway. Deanna, she said quietly, I've been doing this for 28 years. I have never seen a resident this ready to go home. Whatever doubts the board had, they're gone. Marcus belongs with you. She paused, then added, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything your husband put you both through. Some secrets do more damage than the truth ever could. That night, Marcus moved in for good. We carried his 2 duffel bags and 3 boxes up the elevator while Fred held the door and pretended not to cry. Rachel and Tom brought an air mattress for the living room until the new bed arrived. The kids strung fairy lights above it and hung a hand-painted sign that read, Uncle Marcus's room in lopsided glitter letters. At 10:07 p.m., we all stood in the living room, suddenly shy, as if we had run out of tasks and were left with the terrifying enormity of what came next. Marcus solved it the way he solved everything, with simple, devastating honesty. He opened his arms wide. Family hug? He asked hopefully. We fell on him like we were drowning. Later, after everyone had gone home and the apartment was quiet, I tucked Marcus into his new bed the way I had tucked him in when he was small and afraid of the dark. He caught my hand as I turned to leave. Mama? Yes, sweetheart? I don't have nightmares when you're close by. Can you leave the door open? Just a little? I left it wide open and slept on the couch myself, close enough to hear him breathe. The next morning, Saturday, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Marcus singing Fly Me to the Moon, off-key in the kitchen. He had made pancakes shaped like trains. And for the first time in 30 years, Tuesday was just another day. But it was the first Tuesday of the rest of our lives. 365 Tuesdays have passed since Marcus came home for good. That is exactly 1 year. 1 year of mornings that smell like coffee and pancakes. 1 year of hearing my son's footsteps in the hallway instead of the silence I once thought was permanent. 1 year of learning how to be a mother again at 64 and discovering I never really stopped. Today is Tuesday, December 3rd, 2026. The first snow of the season is falling outside our window, soft and quiet. The way forgiveness sometimes arrives, when you're not looking for it anymore. Marcus is 53 now. I am 64. Rachel is 41. Kevin is 17 and taller than his uncle. Emma is 14 and has decided Uncle Marcus is the coolest person on the planet because he can name every locomotive ever built. For the Union Pacific Railroad, we are, against all odds, ordinary, and ordinary has never felt so miraculous. The apartment has changed. The second bedroom is now Marcus's, painted the exact shade of blue he picked out himself. Walls lined with shelves of model trains and books about trains and framed photographs of every family trip we've taken in the last 12 months. There is a twin bed with a quilt I made from his childhood t-shirts, the ones he saved in a box at Willowbrook, because they still smelled like me. There is a desk where he does his library paperwork and writes long, careful letters to the friends he left behind at Willowbrook. There is a small television so he can watch. Kevin's basketball games live when he can't be there in person. My bedroom is still mine, but the door is always open now. Some nights he still has nightmares. Some nights I do. We meet in the hallway without speaking and sit on the couch under the same blanket until the dark feels less heavy. Rachel and her family come every Sunday without fail. Tom grills steaks in the summer and makes chili in the winter. Kevin and Marcus argue good-naturedly about sports statistics. Emma and Marcus build increasingly. Elaborate science fair, projects that have started winning. Regional awards. Rachel and I drink wine on the balcony and talk about everything we never got to talk about. When she was growing, up in a house built on secrets. We have rituals now. Tuesday mornings, Marcus still makes coffee exactly the way I like it. 1 sugar, splash of milk, blue mug with the chipped handle. But now he hands it to me while I'm still in my robe. And he kisses the top of my head and says, "Good morning, Mama," out loud instead of in secret. Thursday evenings he volunteers at the city library, shelving books and helping children with reading difficulties. The head librarian says he is the best employee they've ever had because he never forgets a child's name or what book they loved last time. Friday nights are movie nights. Marcus picks the film. He has a passion for old musicals, and we eat popcorn on the couch while he sings, along to every song and singin', in the rain. Saturdays we grocery shop together. He pushes the cart and reads the list aloud in his careful, deliberate way, and people smile at us because we are clearly mother and son, and because Marcus smiles at everyone like he's been waiting his whole life to see them. Sundays belong to family, and our Tuesdays are sacred. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., no matter the weather, Marcus and I walk to the cemetery together. We bring flowers. We sit on the bench beside Jared's grave, and we talk to him. Some days we are gentle. Some days we are angry. Most days we are both. Today the snow is sticking to the ground in thin white patches. Marcus carries the daisies. He still insists on daisies because they were my favorite when he was small. I carry the thermos of hot chocolate. We brush snow off the bench and sit side by side, shoulders touching. "Hi, Daddy," Marcus says, the way he always does. "It's snowing. You used to like the first snow." I set the flowers in the little metal holder and wrap my hands around the thermos for warmth. "Jared," I say quietly, "it's been a year." Marcus nods. "A good year?" We are quiet for a long time. Then Marcus reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a folded piece of paper. He smooths it carefully on his knee. "I wrote you a letter," he says. "Mama helped me with the hard words." He begins to read aloud, his voice steady and clear. "Dear Daddy, thank you for teaching me how to take the bus. Thank you for the key. Thank you for the pictures of Rachel and her kids. I understand now why you were scared. Being different is hard sometimes, but hiding is harder. I live with Mama now. She makes pancakes on Sundays and sings to me when I can't sleep. Rachel comes every week and we play games and laugh a lot. Kevin taught me how to play basketball, and I am getting better. Emma says I am her best friend. I have a job and friends and a room with my trains. I am happy, Daddy. Really happy. I forgive you. Mama says forgiveness isn't saying what you did was okay. It is saying I will not let it steal one more day from me. I hope you can see us from heaven. I hope you are proud of me now. Love, your son, Marcus Jared Collins." He folds the letter again and tucks it under the flowers, weighing it down with a small stone so the wind won't take it. Then he turns to me, eyes bright with tears he no longer tries to hide. "Your turn, Mama." I take a shaky breath. "Jared," I say to the headstone, "you were wrong about so many things. But you were right about one. Marcus did need me, and I needed him even more. You stole 30 years from us, but you don't get the rest. We are done grieving the lie. We are living the truth now. Thank you for our children. The rest, I leave here with you." I stand up, brush snow from my coat, and hold out my hand to my son. "Come on, sweetheart. Rachel's making lasagna, and Kevin has a game tonight. We promised we'd be in the front row." Marcus takes my hand, his large, warm, gentle hand that once watered my plants in secret, and we walk away from the grave together. Behind us, the snow keeps falling, soft and merciful, covering the stone, the flowers, the letter, covering the past. Ahead of us, the city lights glow through the flurries. And somewhere inside our apartment, the coffee pot is still warm, and the blue mug with the chipped handle is waiting. We have pancakes to make on Sunday. We have trains to build and games to watch and songs to sing off key. We have ordinary, impossible, hard-won days ahead of us, and every single one of them is ours. When we reach the gate of the cemetery, Marcus stops and looks back one last time. "Goodbye, Daddy," he says softly. Then he turns to me, smiles the smile that survived 30 years of secrets, and squeezes my hand. "Let's go home, Mama." And we do. Home to the apartment that finally has both its doors and its hearts wide open. Home to the life we were always meant to have. Home to the rest of our Tuesdays.